Hi everybody, welcome to the dungeon. My name is Robin and today is Lampworking 102.10. So I've been in a kind of a springtime mood and I've been wanting to work on some more florals, which I really haven't done much in the past. If you haven't done many florals, then we're learning together. The plume is something that I have seen in floral beads, and usually they're kind of hiding in the background. Today I wanted to bring it right into the foreground so we can get a better understanding of how it is made. Without further ado, let's get right into this. And as always, I hope you're all doing safe and well out there. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time in the dungeon. Okay, I'm going to start things out with making the Tricolored Stringer. And of course, as always, you can use any color that you like. I thought doing a just a violet blend would look really beautiful on these plumes. So I'm going to start with a gold pink. And right next to that, after I warm it up a little bit, I'm going to add a dark violet. And I'm going to add just a couple of swipes of that. And then right next to that one, I'm going to add a dark purple. And the dark purple is a little bit more red, a reddish purple, while the dark violet is a little bit more of a bluish purple. So this mix of all three colors really looked lovely. And I'm just going to go ahead and heat everything in and gently pull this out into a nice long stringer. And I don't know if this ever happens to you, but I lost hold of my stringer here. And then when I went to go pick it up again, it started to break because my tweezers were so cold. So make sure you always have a really good handle on the stringer or cane when you pull it out. For the bead, I have a light sky blue that I'm going to start out with. And I'm just going to get my mandrel warm and go ahead and start adding my glass. And I will just wrap it onto the mandrel and continue wrapping until I have the length that I'm looking for. And as soon as I was done, I noticed that I had a lot of bubbles kind of rising from the surface. So on this one, I did not get my mandrel hot enough. And if this happens to you, don't worry. Just go ahead and get that glass hot enough to get the bubbles to rise and pop at the surface. And at some point, it will stop doing that. And then you can continue to shape the bead up. So I'm just going to start out by rolling in the center and then working on my edges. I always like to have everything looking nice before I move on to the next step. All right, so here is our Poolside Dichro. This is a beautiful teal color that has the dichro kind of running throughout all the rods. And I just wanted to see how the sparkle would look with this glass. So I'm just going to wrap it on top of the light blue. And one thing I did notice is that this color was much stiffer than what I am used to. So it's good to know. It also took me twice as long to work this glass than my normal 104 colors. So it was kind of interesting to work with this color. Okay, so I'm just going to heat everything up and smooth it down so I can get to another layer of the same color. What I'm looking to do is get this bead to the final size, and then I will add the decoration on top. And I just want it to be a little bit bigger, but before I continue, I always want to make sure I got my edges looking nice and neat. And everything is smoothed down so I don't trap any air bubbles. I also noticed this glass was a little bit shocky. So just be aware of that if you get some of this color. Now I got a large amount of color in the center, so I really kind of need to work it out a bit. So I'll start out by heating the center up and rolling that center out so the glass kind of pushes outward a bit, and then I can start to get that glass to taper into the edges. A little bit more heating and working on the edge. You know, I never want to force the glass into a shape. I always try to rely on heating and just rolling gently to smooth things out. And I will do this repetitively until everything is right where I need it to be. And I love the way this looks already. I see that little bit of sparkle in there, and we're ready to start adding our dots. So when I add dots, what I want to do is, for this specific pattern, I'll put 4 dots in a row, and then right next to that, as close as I can get, I'll add another 4 dots that slightly stagger it. And if you notice, I'm slightly adding these dots in a curve, and that will help my overall pattern. You can make these any size you want. You can get very, very tiny with these dots. That will make the whole process go by faster. Or you can continue to add larger dots like I'm doing here. And of course, we're going to add a whole nother layer of the color on top of this when we're done. You can also do 3 dots or 4 dots. It doesn't matter how many you have on there as long as they're close together and in a tight formation. So when you draw into it, you'll get that nice plumed pattern. Now, instead of relying on the heat and just melting all of these dots down and hoping that they'll look nice when I'm finished, I'm going to kind of help things along by heating and pressing all the dots down. And what I'm looking to do is just get everything a little tighter together. If your dots end up touching each other here, that's fine. Just continue with your heating and gentle pressing. And once these dots get to a nice low profile, then I will go ahead and start to gently roll it out. Get these dots even flatter. This process does take a little bit longer than just a big heat and melt. But in the long run, I think it maintains the pattern better than if you were to just heat everything up. Okay, so those are looking good. Now we're going to add our tricolored cane or stringer. And I'm just going to repeat the whole process and add a dot right on top of each one of those white little dots there. Every time I am working on another section, I will turn my stringer a little bit so the color is orientated differently. So each one of these plumes will have a slightly different color change. Okay, and at this point, I just want to make sure everything is warm. I don't want anything to pop off while I'm trying to press all of these dots down. But I am going to go through the whole process of heating and pressing again. I do like to take my time, as always, when I do things like this, just so I don't feel like I'm messing anything up. I just want to be really particular and gentle when I'm doing this whole pressing sequence. A little bit more and we will just about be ready to pull these into our plumes. And really that's it. Like I said, if you just want to do some practice, then I would just add 4 or 6 small dots and do the action of pulling these into the plumes. But before I get there, I want to go ahead and heat each plume up individually, and notice how I'm just kind of rocking the pattern on the graphite pad. I'm not necessarily doing a long roll yet. I just don't want to distort my pattern, so I'm being really particular on how I roll it out. And at the end, I'm just going to finish just kind of rounding the top and the bottom dots so they match the surface of the bead itself. Okay, this is looking really good. They kind of look like a little bunch of grapes to me here. All right, so we are ready to do our final pulling of these plumes, and I have a cold stringer that I'm going to use that kind of has a little hook on the end. And what I want to do is heat the whole pattern and make sure that the surface is nice and warm, and give it a second for that heat to soak into your bead, and then start your pull from the top dot all the way through the dots until you have that little tail part that you can pull out. And you can pull this out several times if you need to. It's better to take your time than to really dig into the glass and give it a big swipe. Okay, I'm going to do the next one. And again, I'm getting it nice and hot and giving the heat a second to soak into the glass. Right here, I kind of got stuck, so I'm going to heat it up a little bit ahead of where I'm pulling and just draw that little tail out. Okay, one more to go. A nice full heat. Let the heat soak in, and then you're just gently dragging the surface. You're not digging in deep or anything. Allow that glass just to heat up where you need it to, and very gently pull everything out. And you can refine it as much as you want. You can continue to pull those tips out as well, like I'm doing here. And we're pretty much done. That is our plumed bead. And stick around, because I'm going to show you how I take these beads off the mandrel, as some of you have been asking about it. But I do love the way this turned out. I hope you guys try this. If you haven't tried this pattern, it's so beautiful to have in your toolbox of ideas. So here's another bead that I want to take off the mandrel, and I just have a little pair of pliers here. It's nothing special, but what I do want to do is make sure that I'm holding the mandrel right next to the bead, so I don't have the mandrel bending at all when I try to take this off. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you next time in the dungeon.